Discover your inner goddess and live up to your highest value and most abundant potential. Welcome to Grateful Goddesses, a podcast that empowers you to unleash your inner goddess and take the leap of faith to live your best life. Your guide, Karen Pulver, joins her fellow goddesses in soulful conversations about gratitude, personal growth, authentic living, and a bevy of topics affecting women today. Let's start the show with your host, Karen Pulver.
Alysha Myronuk is the creator of the fun new word of Myrony, my irony, which are the crazy coincidences that happen in life we can't explain, and is also another word for sign synchronicity. Her life was fairly normal until she got into a car accident that triggered fibromyalgia at the age of 18 and had to deal with that very painful chronic condition, along with many other life challenges, including loss of both parents, marriage, then divorce, suicide thoughts, attempt, alcohol, prescription drug abuse, addiction, and a full hysterectomy by the time she was 35. Alysha's strong spiritual connection and tenacity is what helped her through some very dark days. However, it's actually thanks to those days that allowed her to connect to her superpower that she calls her spiritual spidey sense. She now shares her new concept hosting That's Myrony podcast along with her spiritual coaching business, My Myrony, mentoring where she uses her psychic gift of knowing, also known as claircognizance, to help her clients through intuitive sessions she calls Unlock Your Blocks, which helps release what they need to move forward and create the life they truly desire, all with a little Myrony.
I am so excited to be here because it was absolutely, I like to say divine Myrony is how connected me to you and then all your amazing goddesses and what you're doing. And I mean, you're just, to me, you're the epitome of goddess. You just give this ray of light and hope, and I'm just honored to be here and to be with the other goddesses today.
Well, I so appreciate you being here, and you've opened my eyes to Myronies, you like to call it, right? Just all of these really interesting things that are happening in my life that you never really realize, wait a second, that's like a coincidence, or that's so ironic that you like to call Myronies. Can you explain the term my irony, Myrony?
Yeah, so Myrony is, I can tell the story about how I, discovered it really. But first, Myrony, again, my irony, take out the I because it's not about I, it's all about we and also something so much greater. So Myrony are the crazy coincidences that happen in life that we can't explain. Also another word for sign or synchronicity. However, it has its own definition because it is synchronicity in motion. We may see that sign, but then there's an action we can take. And I like to say the Myronies help lead us to the puzzle pieces and this giant puzzle we call life. And usually the pieces are people, because it's all about people and not things. So when people start becoming more aware of their Myronies and take action on them, and I like to say synchronicity in motion to stay with the whole M thing, but when you start taking action, you literally, miracles in your life and in others will happen. And it's just absolutely astounding. So what I like to say is, my first episode is called Discover Myrony and Your Inner Superpower. And I want to teach everybody how they can tap into their superpower. I call mine my spiritual spidey sense.
And that's the key, is not just having like these Myronies, coincidences, serendipitous moments and recognizing them, but actually taking action. And that's part of Grateful Goddesses. We definitely talk about like, what's your passion? What's your purpose? But then taking actionable steps. And when you can take those steps, when you can learn like, oh my gosh, I keep bumping into this person. Like, for example, Alyssa, who's a featured goddess, I tell the story that the way I met her was I kept bumping into her, but I had put out to the universe, I want to relaunch Grateful Goddesses, and I would love some women to join me on that journey that are supportive and open and willing to learn. And I kept bumping into this girl all through. I know we live in Chicago and everything. Turned out we live a block away. And I approached her and I'm like, we have to meet. And I gave her my number and I thought she either thinks I'm picking her up or I'm crazy. But she actually acted on it. And she said she felt something too. She was like, we were meant to meet. We met, and she's now a featured goddess. So I'd like to bring on our featured goddesses that are here joining us today. We have Camille, Michelle, and Rachel. And we're going to talk Myronies. And we hope that our listeners and viewers, and if you're reading the blog, you'll start thinking about your Myronies as well. Let's first start with Camille. Camille, what Myronic moments have you had in your life or lately?
Well, so one that just happened to just pop up today, which is so perfect and fits in this whole Myrony and podcast world, is the reason that I even was interested in doing a podcast is a long time ago, I tried out for MTV VJ. And the only reason I tried out for it is because I actually woke up early enough at 4 o'clock in the morning in order to drive 4 hours away to get there in time and bring all my stuff. I didn't make it, needless to say, but when I was a kid, I used to live kind of close to downtown Julie Brown. And one day at leaving the library, I ran into her, and that was just like, okay, this could happen, because I ran into her, and then the MTV thing happened. And then today, just out of nowhere, somebody was making complaints about MTV, and they're playing just the same TV show the entire weekend, basically. I was like, oh, I would love if they brought back Club MTV and Downtown Julie Brown. She retweets me. So, of course, I make a whole quick video to like send to her to kind of like, hey, by the way, I love you. And will you be on my podcast? I'm still waiting for an answer, but she retweeted me a couple of times and wrote back and said how much fun it was, the 90s, and I love the 90s. So it was just, I was like, how perfect is that the day I'm interviewing Alysha, this perfect little Myrony or 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but with Julie downtown.
That's an awesome story.
All 90s to kind of fit in theme.
Well, it sounds like, Camille, you were open to it. Alysha, can you talk about your story? I mean, you, if you listen to your second podcast, you talk about it, and it is quite a Myronic, interesting story. And can you share?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a very strong gift known as claircognizance. It's the gift of knowing. And I didn't know about this until I read this incredible book by Laura Lynn Jackson, this very well-renowned psychic medium, The Light Between Us. And I was like, because, you know, they talk about clairvoyancy, which is where you see things, clairaudience, where you hear things. And I never knew, but I've always had this sense of knowing. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's what it is. And so it's really funny because when I think about it, it actually all started when I was 16 years old. I grew up in New Jersey, and I was looking at schools to go to, and something kept telling me, go to University of Delaware. I never been to the state. Why the heck did I want to go? I only applied to 2 schools. I don't know why, but it was to be part of this journey, you know? So I go there. So my story really started 16 years ago when my father became terminally ill. And he became ill very quickly, like where May of 2004, they thought he had the flu. And August 29th, he passed away from small cell lung cancer after never smoking a day in his life. And he was diagnosed middle of July with hard bone cancer. And so but he was so noble in this, in that he realized he went from finding out to acceptance when it was discovered, because small cell lung cancer is usually stage 4. And he was just like, he just accepted. So he just went very quickly. But what was, how this all started was my dad was in hospice care in the hospital, and I was crying to my aunt, and I had been with this guy for over 2.5 years. So, you know, we were going to get married. There was no doubt about that. But I was crying to my aunt, and I was like his younger sister. And I said, I can't believe my dad won't be at my wedding. You know, I was daddy's little girl and, you know, his only daughter. And she's like, you know, why don't you get married? And I was like, can't do that. And I was like, wait a second. Yes, I can. Why not? So it's so funny because the story all starts with I met this guy. We're going to call him Matt. We're not going to call his name out, but we're going to call him Matt. I met him at this restaurant called 821. And And so it's so funny because it was one of those like magical moments, apparently. Like he said, the first time he saw me, he knew we would get married. And it was just this whirlwind romance almost. So the fact that this is how this all happened was just like ended up being very, well, very Myronic. But he so I called him at the hospital. Now here's the biggest Myrony. I was born in this hospital. So I call him from the hospital and I was like, you want to get married next Sunday? And he's like, of course. So I proposed to him in the restaurant we met at, in the hospital I was born in, that now I'm going to get married in. So I'm the only person in history born, engaged, and married in the same hospital. Yeah, crazy, right? So now let me tell you, I didn't know about Myrony until years later, but this is where it first showed up. So it was incredible. The first day I went, so I literally planned a wedding in 6 days. I asked him on Saturday, we took a day of rest on Sunday. Monday, we're off to the races, planning a wedding for that following Sunday. And my mom even said, why can't we do this in 2 weeks? And I said, we don't have 2 weeks. So the first wedding dress I tried on was the dress of my dreams. 2 dress fittings in 1 week, shoes, last pair of my size, whole bridal ensemble, seriously bought in 3 hours with lunch. The next day was like just signs kept showing up and showing up. I mean, just the most amazing things kept happening that entire week. And then it even was down to the day before. So I was getting married on August 22nd. And it was really funny. We actually thought we were going to get married on August 21st. It was such a whirlwind. We were off by like a day. And the day before, it was torrential downpour, like sheets of rain. And everybody's like, what are you going to do? Because the reception was actually going to be in this beautiful courtyard of the hospital. And that's when I said, if there truly is a God, he will not take this away from my father. And I like to say 8/21 was when I challenged God. And on 8/22, God showed up, because the next day was one of the most beautiful days I ever witnessed. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, not a drop of rain, no humidity on the East Coast. At the end of August, it was a California day in New Jersey, and I really, truly felt the presence of God. And when I say God is love with an awesome sense of humor, which for your listeners, in my logo, I have, I like to say Winky, and that's how I represent God. And if people want to say the universe, source, whatever, but it's just recognizing something greater. So now this beautiful story, which it was, when I got married that night, I remember crying hysterically because I knew he was going to die. My dad was going to die. And sure enough, 1 week to the time that I got married, he passed away. So that was part 1 of the Myronic story. Part 2 is that right after we got married, the owner of the restaurant, I was the general manager, and he was, like one of the, like pretty much the head chef. It was the head chef owner. So, he was one step down from that. It's like, I want you guys to buy the restaurant. So we're like, okay, this is an amazing opportunity. Now, you want to hear something really funny is that I'm in San Jose, California. We actually talked about moving to San Jose. That would have changed everything. But again, it's just part of, the journey that was meant to happen. So we were set to buy the restaurant with family money. We were set to buy the restaurant on December 1st, and it ended up closing on December 8th, which is 8/21 backwards, right? Well, maybe this was some foreshadowing as to how backwards my life was going to become, because a lot of tragedy then happened, where my brother and his then wife became pregnant with twins 5.5 months into the pregnancy. They lost them, which happened on Mother's Day, which was also my brother's birthday. This was all within a year. So also lost my uncle during this time. And I also have battled fibromyalgia. So all the stress and, my body was just, and I never really got a chance to grieve for my father. It was all just like bam, bam, bam. So when the twins were lost, that's when like depression really hit. but I still own this restaurant. So I was like in a constant state of just being, like just survival, right? And massive pain too. And just when you think things can't get worse, I actually had this girl who worked for me who, I mean, I'm just going to say it because it's the story. She actually lied about having cancer and going through chemotherapy when she had a hernia. And I don't know what she wanted. I don't know if she wanted my life, but she decided to leave her husband to be with mine. And it all started at her son's 1-year birthday party. Rachel's face is like, everyone, so,
I feel like I need a speed bump. What?
No, this is the truth. I'm just saying the truth.
Rachel, what's your reaction? You're visually, you can see if you're watching, if you're listening, you can see Rachel's quite reactive.
Well, I'm actually so reactive because I think we're all so raw from COVID that I have been recounting the amount of loss that like my family has experienced this year, and whether it's even loss of opportunity for my kids, like it's not just mine, and and like specific, like I'm thinking like you're talking sickness and death and like all these things. But I think, and then like your husband who met you and thought you were the love of his life and would leave you for like a waitress or someone who was working for you with a 1-year-old. Like sorry.
There's
she
actually
lies about cancer. And she lied about cancer.
But we can actually look at this, and this is one of the things I want to share with the audience. And I'm not, this is not a poor me sort of story, because there's actual triumph that comes from this and an absolute gift. So I'm just going to keep continuing the story because it's looking from this higher perspective, and this is what I'm actually here in this world to do. Because this is just the story. This is all your listeners do not put, they ended up being my greatest gift. I have absolutely no hard, I actually am thankful, and I'll share why I'm thankful. So I'm just going to continue if that's okay, Karen, because I got to go, I got to turn this around because right now this is straight up like, what? Like I started living a soap opera. So, but this is the thing, is that the day of this party, I was given every single sign from above not to go. He didn't want to go. Our navigation would not take us to the house. Like an hour, where it was like 15 minutes away. We could not find this house.
Do you mean you were supposed to, you didn't mention you were going to a party for something?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. We were going to her son's 1-year birthday party.
Okay. And she had just worked at the restaurant. Okay.
Yeah, she was pretty much my assistant actually, and helped post and whatnot. But, so, and what's even crazier is at one point he's like, we need to fire her. And I was like, we can't, she's going through chemotherapy. Like, I mean, it's just really, it's a soap opera, right? So, but every single sign that day told me, or like showed me, don't go to this. Don't go to this. Even the thing is that when I was there, she made a comment that I should have been like, you go near him and I will, I don't want to say anything, but I'm sure you ladies can figure out what I would say. But I went against that intuition. Now, it was the perfect storm. There was so much going on. In addition to our restaurant, we were literally sold a lemon of a restaurant. Where this was, there was a huge economic shift that happened before the big economic shift of 2008. So there was, whatever it was. But he left me 11 months into our marriage. But it was crazy. It was very similar to the whole Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt, Jennifer Aniston triangle. Very similar, just a lot more, micro. But it was, oh my God, it was so crazy because I would have to pretend, because we were this newly wedded couple, where it was literally in the magazine for Delaware. I mean, I'm sorry. Well, it is in Delaware, but in the bridal magazine for Daddy's Little Girl. And now I'm dealing with this not even a year later, like that's it. And it was like, I will tell you, it was the most traumatic. I don't know how I survived it. Because I would have to pretend for people who didn't know that I was this happily married couple. And then for those that did know the horrible thing going on, I mean, you know, you want to talk about being split in many different ways. But my biggest gift was during all this, I somehow tapped into my father's energy and I was being given messages. And without that higher guidance, I know I would have killed myself. And then my mom tapped into it too. And so it wasn't like, you know, because otherwise you make yourself sound crazy, but we were getting the same messages and I'm just like, okay. Well, then about a year later, she became pregnant, and that's when I had tried to kill myself. And I just couldn't handle it. Because I did think, I was like, maybe, I know maybe I'm being stupid to say this, but I mean, he was my everything. And I would have absolutely taken him back because of all the things. Because like I said, it was the perfect storm. But you know, I believe love conquers all. So, but when she became pregnant, that was just it. And
well,
so
you had mentioned you had a hysterectomy. Was that?
Oh, that was way later.
Okay.
That's part of another whole. We can go in that too, but no, this was at this time I still could have kids, but it was when that day happened, I remember saying, I don't want to die, I just don't know how to live anymore. And God, is still emotional. I drank some wine, I took a sleeping pill, and I took a bath. So I gave myself enough of a chance that I didn't take a bunch of sleeping pills. So I wake up in this cold bath and hours later, and I was like, oh my God. And I was kind of like, snap out of it, Alysha. Like, you can't do this. Like, you can't add any more tragedy to your family. And so like something, but it was thank God to my connection to this higher perspective that kept me going. But then I was given the greatest gift that ironically, my friend who took my wedding pictures gave me this book the day before she was moving away, called Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr. Brian Weiss. And that book saved my life. And when I read this book, it just, it brought me to that higher perspective. And that was what gave me the fight to keep going. And so, you know, everything that happened, and there's so much more to the story, and you know, I don't want to take up the whole time for that, but I will tell you my wedding, I mean, like, I believe in soulmates. There's an incredible book here, and I'm going to throw it out there, Only Love is Real. So any of your listeners who are hearing this story and being like, how the heck did this happen? We have our soul contracts that maybe we're meant to have children with. We have our soulmates that maybe we're meant to, you know, really be just in for that period of time. But I will tell you, he was one of my good soulmates, but I had to go back to being Myronic to bring Myrony to the world. So I am happy to have gone all through this, because my ultimate gift, or my ultimate goal, is to help people who feel lost and show them how you can absolutely rise from the ashes despite whatever you go through, knowing that your higher self chose everything that is happening in your life if you truly can accept that way. And that's one of the things that I do in addition to being a podcaster.
Oh my gosh, what a story. And there's so much more to your story too. So people do need to listen to the first few episodes, if not more, of your podcast.
I would like to just give a shout out to my friend Dan McPherson, who has an incredible podcast called Dreams Are Real. And that's where I do a really deep dive into my story. My story on my podcast, I don't go so deep.
Oh,
This one, I do a raw, deep dive of everything that happened. And then if people want to hear the spiritual journey of what we're going to be sharing a little bit about too, is on February 22nd. I'm not sure when this is going to be coming out, but on my friend's podcast, Sense of Soul, I do a deep dive on the spiritual part to all this. So people can hear the whole story, just got to listen to a couple different podcasts.
No, for sure. Well, podcasts are great to learn and and expand and grow. Michelle, you are nodding your head. Can you share how you're feeling and perhaps some serendipitous moments that happened to you in your life?
Yeah, well, your story is so moving. I thought I was going to cry at one point. But sadly, but also happily, I can relate. I was in a long marriage, so that's different, but I was in a long marriage with a lot of infidelity, not on my part. And I believe that there's something deep inside of me that, as dark as it was, and it was dark in the beginning, I knew that I had to, what defined me was how I carried myself in those moments. And I've just grown leaps and bounds since then. But I remember there was a point where, I was thinking like, why am I, I don't want to go on. And I remember it scared me half to death, and I would never do that to my children. And I love life. I remember a split moment just thinking that, and to think of where I am, it's actually exactly 2 years later, and where I am and how much I've learned and grown. And I'm also extremely grateful for having gone through that, because there's a freedom that I feel. I've shown up for myself, et cetera, which I really relate to. And that'll bring me to my Myrony story. Exactly, actually, it's funny how those two actually go together. So right after I split actually, I'm going to backtrack. So I said it was 2 years ago. So the beginning of February, 2 years ago, is when we split. But in November, Karen, my dear friend, we often read similar books, and she was telling me about this book called The Choice by Dr. Edith Eger, and she hadn't finished it, but oh my God, like she can't put it down. What a great story it is. So I'm like, gotta read it. So I read it, and it was only the second time ever that I felt like I really needed to meet the author, and I tried, but I couldn't reach her. And so sort of forgot about it, told lots of people about how great the book was, but sort of forgot that I would want to meet her. And by the way, that was also a big thing, because I'd been feeling that way. And then all of a sudden, towards the end of the book, she says how she moved to San Diego. And I'm like, I'm in San Diego. Oh my God, that's crazy. But I didn't even know she was a Holocaust survivor, is a Holocaust survivor. And I didn't even know that she was still alive. I didn't look to see when the book was written. And so cut to about 2 weeks after my separation, and I was just in a really dark place. And somehow I noticed that she was speaking 10 minutes from my house. And so I knew I had to go. So I went.
Wait, you called me and told me, and I said to you, you have to talk to her. You have to go up and talk to her. You may not remember that.
Right. No, I remember. Actually, I forgot. But
you do not go to that without getting up there.
Oh.
I know, like I knew I was just going to do something crazy. I had to meet her. So I went, and it was a huge school auditorium. And all of a sudden, who sits in front of me but her? Like right directly in front of me. And I remember I wanted to say something at that point, but I knew she had to speak, so I didn't want to bother her. But I'm like going like this to my friend and trying to like suck up her positive energy, because she's such an amazing woman. In fact, she's been on Karen's show once or twice, I can't recall. But anyway, she spoke, and it was really moving. And the second she finished, I just dashed to the stage, and I was the first one up there. I had to meet her, and I did. And our energies, I think, matched, or something happened. And she had a waiting list of like over a year. And I said to her, like, I'm going through a really dark time. I would love to, like, are you seeing people still? Like, I had no idea. And she said, she gave me her phone number and her email. Of course, I called her immediately, and I bypassed the entire years-long waiting list, and she took me immediately. And she really, here was Karen just recommending a book. And this woman has really helped to change my life. Certainly in the beginning, the way my thoughts were and this and that, she helped me reshape them and put me on this journey. that I continue to this day. And I still see her once in a while. I saw her for quite a while, but then COVID hit. And she's really, really a remarkable woman. And I don't even know how I got so blessed to find this angel in my life.
Well, you were open to the universe presenting.
I surrendered.
And then you took action.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I also want to mention to the listeners and viewers that Alysha did a session for me the other day, and her sessions are really incredible. Like, she really dives deep into this experience and then relates these messages back to you that you're meant to hear. And I won't get into the messages she personally shared with me, but it really resonated in my core about why I'm here, kind of validating some of the reasons for me doing Grateful Goddesses, which I always knew that it feels right, but you want to have that reassurance. Is it helping people? Is it helping me grow and expand? And Alysha, you were spot on with that. So that was great.
Well, I'd really like to piggyback on what Michelle said, because
Please.
I had an experience, which is pretty funny, because this is, so when everything was happening, and, I read this book, Many Lives, Many Masters, and it literally was the strength to keep going. And then 2008 happens. And so now the economy is, going down. I have to close my restaurant. I end up closing the restaurant on April 22nd of 2008. I'm broken yet again. Now I feel like I'm a caged animal in this little area, or where I was. It was a small city, and, very publicly known. So besides being humiliated with everything that happened, now I'm humiliated with bankruptcy. And so I didn't leave my apartment. I just couldn't. This is a funny part. It was even at one point I had stocks. I had to cash out all my stocks so I could pay my employees. So they'd be like knocking at my door. I felt like a freaking drug dealer, like handing out like doling them out cash. I mean, it's just it's the comedy behind this, because with Myrony, there is humor, because without humor, what do we have? That's sometimes what we need to keep going. So I was given the other greatest gift of Myrony, was that I had Oprah on the TV. We all love Oprah. I miss Oprah, like Oprah's show was awesome.
And I know where you're going.
Well, but what's so crazy is that I was in my bedroom and I didn't have a TV in my bedroom. I just had the words on, and I hear these profound words, and I'm like, that sounds like the author of Many Lives, Many Masters. Sure enough, it was the 20th anniversary of that book. That was my biggest sign to keep going, because in that book, it tells you that your higher self chooses everything that happens in life. So it was like I was always being given here's enough to keep you going. Now I'm going to give you a little bit more. Now I'm going to give you a little bit more, because this life of mine has been an absolute roller coaster. I think if someone's going to bring Myrony to the world, whose literally last name is Myronuk, you got to have some good stories. So I got, a lifetime's worth. But what was so crazy is that it's very similar, Michelle. I think it was in 2014 or somewhere around there. I was woken up in the middle of the night, and I was like, I wonder if Dr. Weiss does any speaking engagements. And I go online, and he had 6, because he's in his 70s now, so he's not really doing much. He had 6 places he was going to, and one of them happened to be Santa Clara, California, which is where I am. And I was able to see him and get Many Lives, Many Masters signed and meet him. And yeah, so I just love that you shared your story, and that's the whole point, to have your listeners understand, is that it can be the smallest sign that's going to have the greatest impact. And sometimes you may not even know what the meaning is, but if you start looking and you start really becoming introspective, and if you start looking at all the things that have happened in your life, that if you chose to go one way or another, even when it seems to be the bad choice, there's nothing bad. And I actually want to this is one of the messages, Karen, is one foot leads straight, the other is misguided. Both are necessary and will always be present. Make sure to follow the straight foot, because it's the fastest path to your destiny. And so I'm here to show people how to start tapping into that. And, you know, and through these sessions, which I would love to gift all of you a session. So you're more than welcome. And also I'd like to gift two of your listeners, Karen. So if they let me know that I'll do an hour session with them and, you know, be able to do that. They just got to say they heard this on Grateful Goddesses. But I am here to help people feel lost like I was, but I just know how to pull you out of it, where it took me, oh God, 10 plus years. But I do want to also say how I came up with Myrony, because it wasn't until 2015. So I used to be in car sales. And people would say, how do you say your last name? I say, it's like ironic with an M. And I said, there's a lot of Myrony in my life. And I get a little chuckle. And then one day it hit me. I was like, oh, this is a universal word for everybody. My irony, Myrony. And then I was like, oh my goodness, Myrony is the opposite of selfie. What if we start sharing our Myronies in addition to our selfies? So that's the other thing I ask everyone. You like this? Share it. Know that we have another form of content we can have on social media, because imagine if we started sharing these stories and Michelle, you shared your Myrony and I'm like, oh my goodness, I had a Myrony just like that. And we start connecting on that level and we start bringing it to not just being of ourselves. I think the power of what that will create will be amazing. And I need everyone to help make that happen.
Well, I think that too, when you're thinking about what is that actionable step, sure, you can see, like, I see the red cardinal all over the place. And I always think it's a past loved one giving me messages, but what is that? So I started to think, well, what am I thinking about when I see the bird? Like, it's trying to figure out that. And perhaps by sharing everyone's Myrony, then you can see, what did that person do? Like Michelle took action, and, like Camille. And now, Rachel, I'd love to hear your story. Which, by the way, though, Myrony should be in the dictionary.
Yes, I hope to get it in the dictionary. Yes.
Yes. Do you have any Myronic stories, Rachel?
I have to say, I am just loving all the stories right now. And while Rachel's taking her sip, the other big thing with Myrony is trusting. So you'll see a sign, but then you'll actually get a reaction within yourself. So it's becoming aware of external events and also aware of your internal feelings. So when you have that gut reaction, that's when you want to take action. I'm not saying just because you see something is always going to be a significant Myrony, but the fact that you even bring it into, because I think one of the most powerful things that I learned about manifestation was in the book Conversations with God. And it says, to truly manifest, you need to act. As soon as you think you've killed, or you've, I hate to say the word killed, but like you've killed the act, you have to be in action. And so that's the biggest thing. And that's why I say when we're in action, that's how we start tapping into our superpower. So Rachel, love to hear your story.
It's, I was thinking about this, and I feel like there's, always so many stories, and I kept thinking, like, when I travel and you run into someone and you just start talking to them and you're like, oh my God, we both know so-and-so, or you're from the, they're like, I feel like you have these little things that have like percolated in my life, like just these moments. And I'm from a small town in central Illinois. So it's not like I have some big network of people. But this happened a couple years ago, and it was funny. I was meeting a girlfriend to go to the Black Keys concert, and I was super excited to go to this show with her. And we were going to go out for dinner beforehand. But then one of my really good friends, Yoni, I don't know if you know him, Karen, from preschool, but anyway, he was running for a state elected office, and he was having a benefit, and I really wanted to go support him. Now, there were going to be hundreds of people there. He wouldn't even necessarily know I went, but like, even though I had such a big night planned, I was like, I just feel like I have to go. So I go to the event, and I'm able to go see him, and then he whispers in my ear, Rachel, Lori Lightfoot is coming, who is the mayor of Chicago. And I love to meet, love to meet politicians, famous people. I'm all in. So I call my girlfriend. I'm like, I'm not gonna make it for dinner tonight, but I'll meet you at the show. Lori Lightfoot's going to be here. And so again, like, yes, I could see the mayor, but there were hundreds of people there. But I waited. I saw her. I called an Uber to go to the concert. And I'm standing by the door waiting. It's winter, it's cold. And a fellow mom from school, but she's also a politician, calls me over. And she's actually the one, Kelly Cassidy, who got marijuana legalized in the state of Illinois. She sponsored that bill. So it had just gone through, and I was congratulating her on the bill. And then Lori Lightfoot walks up, and she introduces me, but she introduces me as a fellow mom from school. And my kids now go to a private school. So I have done a ton of activism for public school work. And it's just the circumstance in Chicago, how things worked out, but I still am working on local high schools, public high schools. And so, but I was just going to meet her and shake her hand. But when she introduced me as a private school mom, something in me, I felt sick to my stomach. And I was like, sorry, I am not going to be introduced to Lori Lightfoot as a private school mom. And I said, hi, so nice to meet you. I said, I just want you to know I have been a community activist for years. I helped turn around the school around the corner from here. I'm working on local high schools, and they really could use a lot more support. I'm on the board of this not-for-profit. And then she said, you call so-and-so. And then my friend, Kelly Cassidy, said, I'll write you the letter to make, to her assistant. And then I had a meeting, and, and it went. But I love live music so much. For me to have compromised this opportunity to see this concert, just to see, a mayor from a distance talking, there was just something, I just kept listening to my gut. I need to do this. I need to do this. So that's my story.
That's wonderful. And that's the whole thing, is just trust that your inner intuition. That is your most powerful compass in life. Because how many times have we been I always say, when the hamster wheel of our head is what if? Take a moment, sit with your heart and your soul and listen to that, because that is what's telling you the way to go. And I'm not saying it's all going to be roses. No, it's actually I have a message that I'm being guided to share. So if you give me...
This is what she does, by the way, listeners. She'll talk to you, and then all of a sudden she'll say, I have to tell you, it's so cool. Go ahead.
You guys talk for a moment, because I got to find it, because I wasn't planning on doing this. Okay. So I need you to just...
So I'll tell my story. I don't know really if it's Myrony. So Alysha, you'll have to tell me, but it's after the fact Myrony. Is there such a thing? After the fact?
Your story that you shared on your episode.
That one.
Okay.
Not that one. I didn't share this one. This is with my husband. It's
Ooh.
Just so interesting that when we got engaged to then be married, so we had gone out for almost 3 years, we discovered many coincidences that we had over the years. So for example, we discovered, and this is after 2 years of dating, that he was in the same preschool class with my sister, in fact, standing beside each other for the school photo. That our fathers lived in the same, so it's a 4-flat. His dad lived on the bottom floor. My dad lived kitty corner when they were young. My dad moved out when he was 7. And so when they were young, they lived in the same house. Our fathers, we found this out sooner rather than after the 2 years, but they worked 2 buildings away from each other. The biggest one, and we almost didn't get married for this, was here we are the night, that we're sitting down to write out our list for our wedding with his parents and my parents, and just going through, who's going, who's being invited, etc. And they said, yeah, well, Uncle Sam, we're inviting him, and where's his address? And they're looking it up. And my parents are at the same time saying, yeah, cousin Sam, yeah, what's his address? It's the same man. So we are related by marriage. So that at that moment, Eric and I, my husband and I looked at each other and we said, wait, your Uncle Sam is my dad's first cousin. Wait, by marriage. I don't know if we can get married because there might be, how else are we related? So it was like coincidences after the fact.
Well, that is definitely Myrony, but I'm so glad that it was just by marriage because you and your husband are the cutest soulmates ever. Like you guys are
soulmates. I'm not, I after that, not long after that, I did a past life regression and I found out because I was just like, who is this man I'm marrying? You know, what else do I need to find out? And I found out that in a past life, whether you believe in past lives or not, it was just fun to do, that he was my gardener. I was some wealthy aristocrat and he would tend to the garden. Now he's like, you know, he makes jokes about tending to the garden, but we won't go there. But but the point is that he's back in my life and we have many lives together. So for whatever reason, we're back again and we're helping each other. So
yeah, well, and that's, I want to go back to your listeners and also you guys, if you haven't heard, Only Love is Real. So Dr. Brian Weiss is actually connected to past life regression therapy. Many Lives, Many Masters, he risked his entire career and he was a very, very well-respected psychiatrist because of an experience that he had with this one patient, Catherine. But then he ended up writing 5 other books, and this one, Only Love is Real. But this is what happened. And this is actually in my sessions when people want to work with me more than just like a one-on-one, or not just like one time, is I give the tools of the books that literally pulled me, you know, from the depths of despair. And Only Love is Real, and understanding how the different soulmate relationships are. But here's the Myrony here. He had 2 patients that he realized were soulmates through their therapy, and they didn't know each other. And what was he going to do? And it is the most beautiful story of love. So Michelle, I would actually highly recommend you read this book if you haven't read this book, and then we do your session after that so we can go even deeper dive that way. But it's so powerful when we can really look at like how amazing life is, and that if we really just trust the divine design that I love to say interweaves us together. And even, you know, and this is the message. Okay, so there's two messages. The ever-seeking soul finds wisdom and understanding in the mundanity of life, evolves spiritually, and is blessed with progression as lessons are learned. That which needs to be learned is not always readily apparent. Lessons can be small or great, but they must be learned, and karmic debts must be repaid along the way. But this is the one I really wanted to share. Unfortunate occurrences and quote-unquote bad luck scenarios are often required to facilitate higher learning and accelerate a progressive life cycle that is not evolving. Positive, life-changing events can first manifest as personal disasters, but are actually the necessary precursor to understanding and obtaining the awaiting miracle.
I completely agree. I firmly believe in that.
I believe in it, but it's hard when bad things happen to good people. You know,
but there's a reason when we can start looking at it from that higher perspective. And, you know, and I think one of the most powerful things is that when we can say from our higher selves, we chose it, then we actually keep the power and we're not the victims of anything that happens in our life.
But what's your advice to the younger generation who might be listening, or children, like my children who are young adults? Like, sure, I'm in my 50s. I understand this. Perhaps the other women here have a better handle on it. We've been through a lot in life, bad times and then good times. But the younger generation that's like, that sucks. I really wanted this to happen and it didn't happen, and they can't see what's on the other side.
I actually introduced them to this way of thinking. I did this actually with a family member when she was 12 years old and she was not in a good place. And I did what I do in my sessions with her on a different level, and she got it. Because, you know, truthfully, it doesn't matter about age, it's our soul. It's our soul growth. And one of the most powerful things that I know I'm bringing Dr. Brian Weiss into a lot of this. There's more than I just do with Dr. Brian Weiss, but I think the wisdom that he has been able to show is that he was given a vision of Earth being a one-room schoolhouse, and we're all at different grades. And so it's really powerful. So when we can say someone's acting, quote unquote bad, or, just a horrible person, well, maybe they're the equivalent of they're in their terrible twos. They just don't know. Because if anybody had the awareness, they wouldn't be that way. And so when we can start coming from a place of compassion versus a place of judgment, that is such a powerful place to be. But if we can actually show the younger generation, that is my goal. My little cute word of Myrony, I hope will have the biggest impact in this period of time because of bringing this awareness. Because, oh my God, would I not have loved this information when I was, a preteen or teenager?
Well, in learning to surrender and to know that with the down will come the up. I guess it's a cycle. Michelle?
I did want to ask, did you
Yes.
read the book, Your Soul's Plan?
No, I haven't read that one.
It's just, I'm sure it's more of the same, but that book also changed my whole view about past lives and our purpose on earth, and, why tragedy happens, and how it's just part of the plan. So that really made the shift for me.
Have you ever read Conversations with God?
No.
So can I tell a funny story with Conversations with God, how this book showed up in my life? Because this is funny. Because remember, I say 821, I challenged God. 822 was when God showed up. So, and I didn't get to say this as much. Coming up on 6 years ago, I had a profound spiritual experience, and it's starting to come out. I'm putting it out publicly. And actually, I'll put it publicly here. And I know it sounds crazy, but I literally spent 24 hours with God. And this story that I'm bringing out to the world, and if anybody wants to hear the really deep dive, is on my friend's, super spiritual podcast, Sense of Soul. So you can hear that on February 22nd. But when I had this experience, it was just it's so profound. And, for us to think that we're not communicated in this day and age seems kind of silly, right? But the thing that was so funny about Conversations with God is that I didn't know about this book. I heard about this book one time, but I did not know who the author was. I was woken up in the middle of the night to go look at Facebook. It was 4 a.m. I'm like, why is he looking at Facebook? But I have pictures of this. This is one of the things that I have done. My higher self was like, take these pictures of random things, and at some point you're going to put the puzzle pieces together. So I go to Facebook, and no joke, there's this author, Neil Donald Walsh, 822,000 followers. And I'm like, wait a second, what's up with 822? So I click on it. It says Conversations with God. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. So then I go to Amazon to order the book. I have 6 minutes if I want to get it the next day. 6 is my lucky number. I'm just like, what is up with this book? This book is so beautiful, so profound. But I believe that book is more like I believe there's foundations we need to build before we can really truly appreciate the beauty that is shared in that book. And so that's what I kind of like to do, is show people wherever they're at, even if you don't believe in anything, take the chance and read Many Lives, Many Masters, because Dr. Brian Weiss was completely agnostic, and I mean, to me, it's just trying to understand why we're here on earth, even if it's true or it's not true, but if it makes you feel better, but if it's going to help you grow and help others grow, because, we're here not just for ourselves. We're here to help others. We're here to help everyone and lift everyone up. And so, by sharing and being vulnerable, and, when we have these experiences, because truthfully, God speaks to everyone. You just have to listen. Or your loved ones that have passed, you just have to listen. And it's not necessarily
and the acting. It's the listening and then the acting, but it's knowing how to act. That's what I guess it's like feeling in your gut how to act. So for example, I see 714 all the time. When I wake
Oh,
up,
that's hilarious.
I don't know.
That number just showed up, Karen. Literally, there's a connection between us with that. And I'm going to.
In the morning,
That was
in
my
the
due
night.
date.
What's that?
Oh my God.
That was my due date.
Well, 7:14, and it's not just for me. My husband sees it too, and sometimes he'll call me on his way home. Yes, he comes home at 7:14 at night, sometimes later, but he'll call me in the car, and I'll be like, "It's 7:14." He's like, "Oh yeah." We don't know what it means. So if you don't know what these, I guess you just have to trust that it will come.
Mm-hmm. You just have to. So it comes in all different ways. It can come in numbers. Like mine show up on license plates all the time. I get more messages from freaking license plates where I have pictures where it was like, and my numbers are 821, 822, 829 when my dad passed away. But then I have a whole bunch of other numbers. And I'll even be honest, I now connect them to Bible verses because they're really powerful. And that was kind of what I was given, like, check this out. And one of them is 222, which is really funny. It's actually Acts 2:22. And when I talk about this, I'm not religious. I'm all encompassing of religion in the sense of, like, I actually believe God has given us this information. You know, people want to say universe, sure, whatever. But God has given us all this information at some point. And maybe a little piece has been taken out of every one. And maybe if we just rotate it around and start putting it together, now we're going to have the whole piece of the puzzle. And another beautiful book from, if you want to read one of the most fascinating books of an Aboriginal tribe in Australia, it's called Mutant Messages Down Under. This woman is invited to go on a walkabout. She has no idea what she's going to be doing. This is the most powerful book of understanding what true faith is, in that they literally manifest everything out of absolutely nothing. And true faith is when we can let go of fear. And I like to say, step aside and let God guide. And so I don't want people to start questioning their signs. I want them to just trust them. I want everyone to just be like, you've paid attention. There's a reason why you paid attention. When you hear a song on a radio, you're like, God, that sounds like that's for me. Pay attention to it. Our loved ones that have passed, they love sending us signs.
Well, I always say thank you when I see it. I always say thank you for that. And I used to be, what, why? I don't understand. Now it's just thank you. And I just sort of am open to my feelings or what's going on in the moment. Perhaps I'm thinking that I missed somebody, and then I'm like, oh, should call them, that type of thing.
And I also want to say why we go through the bad parts, the quote unquote bad parts in life, is unless we experience the ugly, we can't truly appreciate the beauty.
So true. A lot of our
growth
guests
happens when we're going through that ugly time.
And that's where, when we're going through the ugly time, is I always tell who I work with, just people, just try to look from that higher perspective, knowing that for some reason there is a bigger picture. But maybe it's because, are you going to grow from this, or are you going to, really let this take you over? And I mean, I will admit, I can't even tell you how many times I wanted to kill myself through all this, because in addition, and but besides all that craziness, yes, I had a full hysterectomy when I was 33. I had to deal with, I definitely dealt with alcohol abuse. I dealt with prescription drug addiction because of the pain from some things that happened with my fibromyalgia, loss of both my parents, like you name it, in a way. But I believe I was, it's always like you're only given what you can handle. And I will tell you, there were a few times I don't know how I made it through. I really don't. But I'm so happy I did, so that I can just share my story authentically, raw, for anyone listening, knowing that you are not alone in anything that is happening, and we can come together and we can be each other's support. And that's one of the things that I'm hoping by Myrony becoming a word known around the world, is that we can connect on this, and we can actually, share and maybe even be able to lift each other up. because what if we hadn't shared these stories? Look at all the Myronies that have happened just within the 5 of us. Even us me coming on the call, Camille, you're bringing up our friend Camelia Britton, who you just interviewed, who and then to find out that Michelle knows her. And I'm just like, so, Camelia, when you hear this, giving a big shout out to you too, because she's Camelia's a big Instagram influencer. Like, she helps build brands for Instagram, but she actually started off as this travel blogger, but then she went through this incredible triumph of breast cancer and just put herself out there. But I was guided to meet her. And so the fact that that conversation came, because Camille just came out, Thursday? Like, that's just amazing, And I will say, if your listeners want to hear more Myronies of Karen's and Camille's on both your episodes, Camille, you were discovering Myronies as we were interviewing. That was priceless. So Karen's episode is episode 14 and Camille's is 27. And I think that the more we share these stories, the more everyone will be able to start tapping into their own superpowers, which is ultimately awareness.
And I was also going to say that many times now I use that word just as part of my language. Like, I'm like, that's so Myronic. And my family, my parents are like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that's so Myronic. Well, you have to listen to Alysha's That's Myrony podcast.
Well, that's the whole point of this. This isn't my word. I'm just a messenger.
I know.
This is literally, but I mean, like, I want people to start using this word. Synchronicity is great, but it's really long and most people don't know how to spell it.
So if our listeners and guests, who are joining us, our featured goddesses, or the listeners and viewers would like to contact you, there's many ways. How can they do that? Either for a session or just to obviously listen and watch your podcast.
Well, you can go to that'smyrony.com, so MYRONY.com, and there is my Myrony mentoring, where I actually give a 30-minute, intuitive session just to get to know each other. But for you lovely ladies, be doing an hour. And I also want to include it to your other goddesses who aren't here today.
So nice. Thank you.
And then again, so your listeners, if they go to that 30-minute, but then they say, I heard you on Grateful Goddesses, then I will give them an hour. So that's one way. I'm pretty easy to find on social media. No one has my name. So, Instagram, Alysha.Myronuk, and @that'smyrony, or @that's.myrony. And I just would love to connect, and, however we can connect. I want to hear your Myronic stories. I'm actually doing a compilation book right now for people to share their Myronies, and it's actually called Got Myrony, Life is Good, and it's book 1 because there's going to be many in the series.
Absolutely. And I hope you'll be joining us too on GGTV one Sunday night. We can share lots of Myronies with lots of viewers. And
I would love
thank you
that.
so much. I know that your sessions, I'm just reading here, unlock your blocks, which help release what you need to do to move forward and create the life that you all truly desire, all with a little Myrony, and give a little wink. So thank you for joining us today on Grateful Goddesses, Alysha. We're so glad that you're here.
Oh, thank you. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure.
Up next, favorite things. Opening up to happiness and joy.
Welcome everyone to Favorite Things on Grateful Goddesses with our guest Alysha Myronuk. So it's actually quite Myronic, or my irony today is I came into my office and I was thinking, well, what's my favorite thing today? We always talk about, are we going to run out of favorite things? But we're never going to run out of favorite things. But I decided to let my intuition guide me. And I have lots of books behind me. I do teach preschool, and I do have some preschool books up here. And I don't remember this one, but it came up. It's by Peter H. Reynolds. It's called The North Star. And I picked it up. And I remember getting this, but a long time ago. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I am going to read this. It's actually the inside insert. It is often said that life is a journey, and it's true. But sometimes it's difficult to know which path to follow when signs point in so many directions. In this beautifully illustrated book, Peter Reynolds once again inspires readers to observe, to wonder, and to consider, diverging from the well-worn path to follow their dreams. And throughout the story, the little boy keeps going on a different path than what his gut is telling him, and he gets lost, and he ends up going actually in the swamp, and he's stuck there. And he doesn't know what to do. But then this page says, "I'm not sure," said the boy as he looked around at the dark, tangled swamp, "but I do know that this isn't where I want to be. I guess I am lost." And a bird says to him, "Ask yourself, where is it you want to go? And then follow the signs that you already know." And he ends up on this beautiful journey of everything that he wants in his life. And it just resonated with me for today. I'm like, this is the book I have to share. And everyone should read this book, or at least, take a look, because for a child, like it says, if only every individual could find and follow his or her own star and be encouraged to do so, how different the world would be. The North Star moves us in that direction. And that's by Dr. Jane Goodall, which is on the back. That's my favorite things. I love children's books because they're really authentic. They really tell what the meaning is. Camille, you were sort of getting emotional about that. How come?
I refer to my grandmother as my North Star. And then recently I started calling my dad that. It was just realizing the transition, because I lost her last year, January 13th.
I'm sorry.
2 days after my birthday. So it was very difficult. I was just hearing now, she's like, and I'm doing an event next weekend with a performer, and it's called he performs a song called Daddy Daughter Day, and the place that he owns is called the North Star.
No. Okay, well then there we
These
go.
Myronies do not stop.
They do not stop.
I was
Well,
trying
Camille,
to
I'll let you go next.
anything.
I'll let you go next.
So I'm obsessed with the 90s lately, because I did this press release where I had to do the salt and pepper thing. So everything 90s has been in my head. And during that press release, I was really excited about meeting one of my idols, Wendy Williams, or not her, but the actress that plays her was one of the women we were supposed to interview as well. And they kept, every other press person got to ask their questions, I'm like, dang it, that's my question. Okay. Like I was running out of questions. And they're like, 5 more minutes. And I was, and they hadn't gotten to me yet. So I just typed in the chat real quick, hey, what's the lipstick you
What's the lipstick you're wearing?
Well, no, in the movie, what was the lipstick you wore as Wendy Williams? Because it was iconic, and she made a point of mentioning that the guy that was playing her husband in the movie, he picked out the lipstick for her. Well, I bought the lipstick. She told me what it was. I'm wearing it now, and guess what it's called? So 90s.
Oh, so 90s. Oh my God, that's awesome.
So I had it, yeah. So that's Charlotte Tilbury. So 90s. And it's a matte lipstick, but it's not like drying.
Very pretty.
And it's called brown, but in the movie it looked very red, and I don't normally like reds, but I liked it on her, and it's like the perfect brownish red color. I would have never picked looking on the website, and she was 100% right. Sierra Payton, who played Wendy Williams. And that's my little lunchbox they sent me for me not getting to interview her, which was totally worth it, I might add.
I love it. Thank
Very
you.
90s, very much my thing.
And you're wearing your Tommy Hilfiger shirt too, which is 90s for sure.
Because my dad would have never let me buy this as a kid.
Oh, I love it. Rachel, what did you bring today?
I wanted, my favorite thing right now is this new sweater that I got from one of my favorite little boutiques in Chicago called Winifred Grace. And it's like a champagne pinky color. It's super soft. I never would have bought this color for myself, but my girlfriend who follows them on Instagram saw this sweater and she said, you need to go get this sweater. I happened to be walking there already that day, and I put on this sweater, and it really is a good color for me, especially like with my silver hair now. It's like, it's become a good color for me because I normally wear bold colors. But anyway, I love this boutique, Winifred Grace. They have beautiful, so this bracelet is from them. This is my Wonder Woman bracelet. Even I have like new rings that she designed that are from like printing press edge designs, which I'm a writer. So it's just a beautiful little store, and I love their stuff.
You've mentioned that store before. I was going through favorite things, the list. I was writing everything down. I have to get there for sure. Here
I
in
want you to
Chicago.
stand up and show us your sweater.
Yeah. Stand
Yeah,
up.
sure.
Well, or lower.
I'm actually standing because my back hasn't been great, but it's just like, and you
Beautiful.
can wear it
Cozy.
like it can go off shoulder, like kind of like a 90s flash dance or 80s flash
It's
dance.
so pretty. And the thing is, for those of our listeners right now,
Super warm.
we're filming this in February, and it is like 7 degrees today. I took the dog out for a walk. We froze.
It feels like -4. Just saying.
That's a perfect sweater to be cozy, and I'm so glad it makes you feel good. It looks so yummy. I think I might get one. I'm going to go take a look. The color does look great on you.
Thank
Michelle, what did you bring today?
Karen, you may recognize this.
Oh no, I'm scared. Oh yeah, I made that for
Karen
you.
and I learned how to play Mahjong together maybe 8, 10 years ago. I don't know. But Karen came to visit me not long after I moved to San Diego from Chicago, so a little over 6 years ago. And she had made this for me. It's may not look like it here, but it's a Mezuzah, which is something in the Jewish faith that we put on our doorposts, certainly the front door, and then possibly rooms in our house to protect us from any evil that may want to be entering the home. And behind it, this is part of it too, is it's a prayer scroll. So she put that inside, which I love. And it's actually kind of Myronic because it's on with Velcro. So it sticks to my doorpost with Velcro. It had literally just fallen off. I put it on my desk and then I went, oh, I need a favorite thing. Because it is, and thank you, Karen. I love it so much, and it reminds me of you all the time, and it reminds me of the joy that I get when I play Maj, and knowing that I'm protected.
Oh, I'm so glad you shared that. I forgot about that, and you took it with you now to your new house.
I did, of course I did.
I wasn't sure you could leave it. You could have left it there, but you took it off the door. I love that.
I did.
Thank you for sharing that. It does bring back great memories. Thank you. And Alysha, what did you bring today?
So I just want to recap on a little couple Myronies going on because Karen, with the North Star. So the podcast I shared earlier about my deep dive on my personal is my friend Dan McPherson of Dreams Are Real, and he always says follow your North Star. That's literally what he says all the time. So I love that connection. Michelle, I love the Mahjong connection because my mom used to play Mahjong, and where I just recently moved a few months ago, they play Mahjong. I was like, I need to learn to play Mahjong. I haven't learned. Yeah, I hear it's a great game. So I love that came through too. So mine is my favorite thing, as you can see, it's like a little sparkly coyote. I bought this for my nephew. I was in Colorado with a friend she asked me to go to a wedding of one of her friends. And then we were going back to the East Coast. So I was going to Baltimore, and my nephew, unfortunately, he just committed suicide. Actually, the crazy thing is that when Karen and I recorded her episode, it was that day. And I didn't cancel because, I wasn't going to cancel on Karen, and I kept it in until right at the end. And, but I know I've received messages from him. I know he's good. He's 14 and he's such a sweet soul, but I was able to, bring this back as he's always with me.
That's so nice. And then you were going to be on earlier than this taping today, and then I think you went in for the funeral.
Yeah.
And, you're here today. Thank goodness. I'm so grateful that you're here and that we got to do this interview and really learn so much about just really trusting the universe and looking out for those Myronies and acting on them. And if you're really not sure out there, how do I do this? I don't know what this means. Please reach out to Alysha. Join her and myself on a GGTV on a Sunday night, which should be out soon. And she would love to hear, and me too, about all your Myronies. So hopefully everyone today will look out and have a great Myronic, marvelous day. Thank you for joining us on Favorite Things with with our grateful goddess, Alysha Myronuk.
Unleashed your inner goddess yet? Thanks for joining us today on Grateful Goddesses. We invite you to visit our website, www.gratefulgoddesses.com, to access today's show notes as well as other helpful resources. Don't forget to leave a review. Until next time, stay strong and empowered to be a grateful goddess.